Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Dawson. Welcome to Leader Talk. This show is proudly brought to you by Brainiact. Each week we are meeting with incredible leaders from around the world to discuss all things leadership and business insights. Each person coming on this talk show has given up their valuable time for one very clear purpose: to give back to small and medium business owners. Now, do you have what it takes to be a likable leader? Is this something that we can learn? Today, Gus Arianto and I are fortunate to chat to our guest speaker, Michelle Tillis Lederman. Michelle is a highly regarded business professional renowned for her expertise in communication, leadership, and networking. With over 2 decades of experience, Michelle has held influential roles in business development and strategic relationship building. Michelle is the founder and CEO of Executive Essentials, empowering individuals and organizations with effective communication tools to achieve success. And Michelle is here today to teach us all how to be likable leaders and how to keep connected in the virtual world. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thanks for having me, Natalie.
Hello, Michelle. Good morning. First, we would like to say thank you for donating your time, your valuable time for our audience, small and medium business owner all over the world. Your time is important. We have a time difference, and thank you. We can't wait to learn from you. Thank you.
My pleasure. Yes, the time difference. It was fun trying to figure out what day, because you're in morning. It is kind of getting towards evening here in New Jersey in the USA.
Yes, and also note to Natalie, it's the 12th in Australia and it's the 11th in the US. So
Yes.
Bit of confusion this morning, but we are here and we are excited to learn from Michelle. But Michelle, before we do, we've got 2 fun questions that we'd like to ask you. And the first one is, what is the most adventurous thing you've ever done or would like to do?
That's a really long list, because my husband tells me I'm an adrenaline junkie, which I didn't know that not everybody wanted to go scuba diving with sharks and jump out of planes. I thought everybody wanted to do these things, 2 of which are those that I did, and did them on my honeymoon with my husband. So I have kind of brought him over to the dark side. But just about anything I will try. I've gone on a hot air balloon. I have bottle fed a Siberian tiger cub.
Wow.
Zip lining, over lots of different places and different things. The only thing I don't want to do is bungee jump.
I just about to ask that.
Yeah. I don't want to be upside down. Like, I'll jump out of a plane with a parachute, but I just, the whole upside down and the bouncing,
Oh, that's amazing. And look, we know you like to travel. You've mentioned that to us off air. What is your favorite travel destination and why?
Oh, people ask me that all the time, because I've been to about 75 countries.
Oh, wow.
And 6 continents. I'm working on number 7. It's a few years off, but we're working on it. And I kind of have a top 5 list. I could never pick just one. But, we just did a trip last summer to Africa. And so just Botswana was incredible. I love Zimbabwe. I love Tanzania. But the entire continent. I love Africa. I love Thailand. That's actually where I was on 9/11. And the people were just so warm and caring. And it's just amazing. I love Thailand. Israel, which I went to last December, but also when I was 16. So it was really interesting to see it in a 30-year gap between those trips. Costa Rica is one of my favorites. And recently, Iceland made it to the top of my list.
You've been to Iceland?
Yeah.
Amazing.
So if anybody ever wants to talk travel, I got a list.
We can convert this into travel, Gus. We both like to travel, don't we, to try to squeeze it in. That's amazing. 75 countries. That's phenomenal.
I'm heading to the Galapagos next week, and we're hitting Greece at the end of the summer. So I've always have to have someplace to go.
Have you been to Australia? I have to ask.
That's where we honeymooned. And that's probably on my top 5. I should probably boot Costa Rica out, because we absolutely loved Australia. That's where we jumped out of the plane. That's where we pet sharks in Fiji on the way to Australia. We spent a month there, and I said, this is someplace I could live.
And can I guess that Melbourne is the best? No,
I
that's
didn't
where
make
I
it to
live.
Melbourne. I didn't make it there. But we did, we did Alice Springs, we did Cairns, when we went diving, Kawara Beach, we did Tasmania. Yeah, we obviously did Sydney, did the bridge climb. So
Oh, I want to get off now. I don't really like Michelle after this.
I want to come back. I loved Australia, so I do need to hit Melbourne.
I'm from Sydney, Michelle. We always have these things. Sydney's better than Melbourne. Well, that's my guess. No, Melbourne is great. Great coffee if you like your coffee, Michelle.
Yeah, I don't actually drink coffee. I'm like this without coffee.
That's amazing. And look, Michelle, I gave a really brief intro to you at the beginning, but it is definitely not enough. Can you let our audience know a bit more about yourself, your career, and also your books, because you have written some books?
Yes. Okay. So where do I start? I guess where I start is that I'm a recovering CPA. What that stands for in the US is a certified public accountant, but my mother will tell you that it's a certified pain in the assets, which is her accounting humor. So I spent 10 years in finance, and I was really frustrated by the leadership working in financial institutions, the lack of communication, the lack of connection. All of it is really kind of what led me to what I do now. And I started doing it for a bank. And I started doing this work around 2001. While still in finance, I was doing some of this work on the side, and I was a professor at NYU in the Stern School of Business for 7 years. I coached faculty until 2014. And Executive Essentials, began doing coaching and training of all the soft skills that are really, really hard, right? And those soft skills, I hate the phrase soft, because the truth is that's the biggest differentiator in how we lead and how we connect. And from an average to a star, it's all the stuff that I teach, and that people sometimes don't put the weight on that they need to. So that's kind of how the transition started. And since then, I have worked with universities. I've actually done talks in Australia, but it was during COVID, so I was here, sadly. But on multiple continents, I've been a speaker, and based on most of my books. So my first book was the 11 Laws of Likability, which came out in 2011. And that's when things kind of took off. Went global. It's in, over a dozen languages. And the follow-up to that book is The Connector's Advantage, 7 Mindsets to Grow Your Influence and Impact. And I'm sure we'll talk about both of them today. And I also wrote a couple books that you can't see the top of, but they're on interviewing. One is to help veterans and service members all over the world get back into the civilian workplace. That book is free. You can just go online and download it for free. That's my way of being of service to those who have served.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Fantastic.
It is. And, I said it in the introduction, we all want to be likable leaders. And, this is where we want to ask you lots of questions about this. You mentioned 11 laws of likability, Michelle. Do we need to focus on these 11 laws to be likable leaders? Is there one over the other, or are they all kind of intertwined into one?
It's a great question. People often say, well, what's the most important law? I'll just do that one. And the truth is, you can't make anybody like you. I want to be really, really clear. You cannot make anybody like you. However, we are all likable humans. And what we need to do is enable people to see what is likable about us. And, that comes with what we do before, during, and after a conversation to create connection. And that's what the likability book is about. What do you do before, during, and after the conversation? And so it is nonlinear. All of my work is nonlinear. It enables and reinforces each other. So if you look at, the mindsets of a connector. So again, these two books build off of each other. And so likability came first. And then from there, we learn how to be a connector. A connector is somebody who prioritizes relationships, right? A likable leader is somebody who prioritizes the relationships that they have with their team, right? This is a connected leader. This is how we think about, who we want to work for. I actually gave a talk today for 100 universities were in the audience. And one of the topics we talked about was connected leadership. And if you want to be a connected leader, think about a great leader in your life. And I'm going to put you guys on the spot for a moment, right? Gus, I know you work in that corporate environment and you have people who are asking for things. I want you to think about somebody in your life who got the most out of you. It could have been a sports coach. It could have been a relative. It could have been a former boss. It could be a current boss, but somebody who got the most out of you, right? When that person's in mind, just nod your head.
Mhm.
You got them?
Mhm.
Yeah? Okay. Gus, tell me just something, not the name of anything, but just something about what they did that you felt got the most out of you.
Allowing me to be myself and make a decisions. Like really, if I remember this person, right now, he it's obviously it's a he now. He really get everything from me because his way of allowing me to be brave and making a very important decision, not all the time, but when it's needed, I can just feel that connecting. I'm connecting to it. So it's funny when you're talking about it. I start writing, and the connecting piece is something that it's only come up now. Hey, I'm actually elevating my relationship with him, which allow me to like him by him allowing me to connect, by allowing me to be who I am and making decision of my my own. So that's yeah.
And let me ask you, is this somebody who you want to work for again?
Yes,
Would you
absolutely.
go the extra mile if they asked you to stay late or pitch in?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
And this is funny, like we talk about this. Is someone who make you believe that you can actually contribute to their success will
Yes.
do more.
Okay.
Because
So here's
we want to be. I think everyone wake up want to make a difference. Maybe that's the way I put
yeah.
it. I
You
wake
want
up in the
to
morning to
feel
make
like
a
it matters.
difference.
You
Yes.
want to feel like your work is making
Yeah.
contribution. Okay, so I heard a lot of things in what you said. And then Natalie, I'm going to ask you because you nodded as well, so you can tell me
Yeah.
about your leader.
Mhm.
I heard that you had a leader who empowered you, right? Allowed you to make decisions. They provided opportunity. They supported you. They had your back. They, helped you get there, but they did not micromanage, right?
Yeah.
They trusted you. They believed in you. They cared about you. You described all the things that go into being a likable or a connected leader, right? We're going to use those terms a little interchangeably. And as a result, you were productive for them. You were engaged in the work. You were loyal, right? You enjoyed the work. You had higher morale. All of those things that we struggle with as leaders, right? Is keeping our people engaged, keeping them retained, because turnover costs a lot. And disengagement costs a lot. $500 billion a year it costs organizations. Voluntary turnover costs organizations $1 trillion a year. So if you want to think about your bottom line, you need to think about your people and creating this environment where, you enable them to feel connected to the work. And that's actually one of the three things that leads to employee job satisfaction. That feeling that I know how my work has an impact, right? That feeling in the loop. No matter what your role is, how does it really further the mission? The understanding attitude from the boss and appreciation and recognition are the other two things that really lead to job satisfaction. All right, so we got all of that from you just thinking about somebody that you felt was connected to you, a leader that you were connected to. So Natalie, now you tell me about somebody.
Yeah, when you mentioned micromanaged, very early on in my career, I was heavily micromanaged by my first boss. But it was in a way I understood what I didn't want to be. So that I took that in a positive, But the boss following that micromanager was completely opposite, empowering, allowed me to make those decisions, and actually backed me in I was in a very, very difficult situation, and he was a male. He backed me, had my back during it all, and that just forever. I'll go back and work for him any day if I ever return to corporate. But it was that it doesn't matter if I made a mistake or if I was in a difficult situation. I knew that I would be supported, and that meant the world to me after coming from a micromanager.
There you go. Right? A micromanager doesn't trust you. They don't empower you. They don't enable you to grow. They stifle, right? And you just said it. I will go anywhere. I will do anything. That feeling, that's what you want to create. You can't be a great leader unless you have people who want to follow you. So really, we talked about the 3 things that enable job satisfaction, but as a leader, there's really only 2 things you need to do. Show your people you care about them as people. And 2, show your people you care about the things they care about. Right?
Yeah.
You said, Gus, he didn't let me do it all the time, but when it was important, right? When it was something that really mattered to you, you got that flexibility, you got that freedom.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you guys already know, and everybody listening, you had that person in your head. And you think about their behaviors. If you want to be a connected leader, think about the behaviors that enable you to do that. And you know, we are all both leaders and followers, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're sitting there complaining about something a boss is doing, then look inwardly and say, am I doing the same things? Am I falling into the same traps? And what can I adopt from those leaders that have gotten the most out of me? We all know what it looks like, right?
And Michelle, can I ask a question? When we talk about likability, when we talk about likable leader, every morning we wake up thinking that everyone likes us until we see someone put the horn in the car when we exit from the house and start thinking, God, in the first 5 minutes we exit the house, there's people that dislike us already. And then we arrive in the office, we start saying hi to everyone, and 50% say good morning and smiling, and some of the people is actually disregard us. Where is the blind spot of most leaders? You see a lot of leaders, and we can't be likable. Like what you say, you cannot make anybody like you. So obviously there will be some that don't like us.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you can pick the top 2 blind spot of many leaders, because as a leader myself, we tend to just disregard who don't like us, and we keep focusing on the one who's smiling at us. And
that's actually a bad approach, right?
Yeah,
I
correct.
mean, we have a tendency, we like people who like us, right?
Yeah.
And then what happens is you play favorites, and you further feed into the reasons and reinforce why somebody might not like you. And again, we can't make somebody like you, but what we can do is create a productive exchange. Like, how can I bring productive energy to the situation? And the law of energy is one of our, the thing is reversed, so I keep on pointing to the wrong book behind me. But one of the laws of likability is the law of energy, and energy is contagious. So you might be reading somebody as not liking you, but that might not be the case. I'll tell you a quick story. When I used to teach at NYU, I taught part-time MBA students. These were people who were already in their career, already working, but were coming back to get their MBAs. And it was nights, it was weekends, they were tired. And I had one guy always sat in the front row and always looked angry, right? And so you're thinking, I'm thinking he must hate this class. But we are there all day on the weekends. It is a 7-hour day on the weekends with that break for lunch. And so I'm eating lunch in the room and he's eating lunch in the room, and we start chatting. And I said, how's the class going for you? And he said, it's great. This is amazing. And I was like, really? I'm like, I thought you hated it. He goes, oh, don't get me wrong. I hate public speaking, but your class is amazing. That student is still in touch with me to this day. We read people, but it might not be accurate. We need to check our assumptions. We might not be reading them right. And when you think you know something about how somebody feels about you, right, you then act accordingly. And what you're really doing is building on assumption and then possibly reinforcing your confirmation bias when you might not be right.
Yeah.
So really, I always talk about, and this is one of the things I talk about in the Connector's Advantage. I'm just going to keep going like this. When we talk about being open and accepting, I talk about being open to being wrong. And how do we slow our thinking down to stay in a place of curiosity versus conclusion? Right? We don't want to just believe just because you didn't smile today, maybe you're shy. Maybe you are focused on, oh, I forgot something, and you didn't even notice me walk past you. My lack of a smile might have nothing to do with you. But that how you treat me because you think I don't like you, that does. So just be careful of the assumptions that we're building in.
But Michelle, as a leader, we have a lot of people around us. And There is people that smiling, there's people that looking down, there's people that don't like us, there's people who like us to the extent that they like us so much that we don't like them because they waste so much time. They're standing in front of us. I don't have time to actually work on all of them. So what happened when leaders have that mindset? Like, Michelle, I don't have time to, I walk into the organization and I see someone that always put a sour face, and I make no assumption. It could be his life. It could be, it could be that he's losing his bet on the weekend, whatever it is. But how do we work on this? Because we don't have time to make everyone happy, but at the same time, that one person that is not happy can actually impact the culture at the same time. So how do you see this?
Okay, so there's a couple of things going on here. One is you said, I don't have time to make everyone happy. It's not your job to make everyone happy, right? So let's let that go. It is not your job to make everyone happy. It is in your purview to work effectively with them. And there's going to be people who you enjoy their company more, but there's also going to be people that you work more effectively with, even if you don't enjoy their company. And one of the best collaboration partners you have is with somebody who's opposite your style. So when we think about working with people who are different from us, appreciating the differences is one of the best techniques I can give you to enable a more effective connection with them. Because, all right, I'm a planner and you're spontaneous. I am a risk averse and you're a risk taker. We naturally clash. There's natural friction. And there is the most powerful collaboration possible because we balance each other. We can play devil's advocate. We can bring the diversity of thought to the best solution and the best decision making. So I don't have to like you and have a beer and be your best friend, but what I can do is appreciate the differences in our approach and in the way we think. And when you can acknowledge, admire, remember we said 3 things lead to job satisfaction. One is appreciation and recognition. I can appreciate and recognize something that you said, your approach, your ethic in how you work, your solution. I can appreciate and admire something. And when you appreciate and acknowledge and admire somebody else, you actually increase their trust and your likability, right? Because people like people who like them. So if I am showing you that I'm appreciating our differences and that I can see how we can work together, if I can overcome the friction, then you are going to elevate your productive relationship. And again, we're not trying to be best friends with everyone. That's not our job. But we want to be able to, as I say, work better together and play nice in the sandbox.
And Michelle, sorry, Nat, I really love this
it
topic,
is.
right? And I have one question, and I want to put it as an example. So obviously, being likable leader, which is important because once you become a likable leader, you can actually connect with the people and you can start getting the best out of them. Being a likable leader, am I right to say it's a never-ending effort and learning? Because as you grow, your witness is also grow, because we can't be a perfect leader or human being. What I mean by that, I give an example. Maybe this is I hope this is a right example. I have all the 11 laws without actually understanding the 11 laws. I want you to share with us. Just assume that there is 11 laws out there. But at the same time, I have one gap in my personality that I just like to talk so much everywhere I go, which I have everything that people like. I care about you. I appreciate your views. I don't.
Gus.
We lost Gus.
I think Gus is cutting out.
Oh,
Gus,
sorry.
can you hear us?
Am I here? Yeah.
You're
am I here? Am I
back.
back? Yeah. So what happens if I have one element of blind spot?
But here's what I'm hearing. That's not actually a blind spot. You have awareness. And so the first mindset of a connector is to be open and accepting. We talked about being open to being wrong. But we also are talking about being accepting of ourselves, right? It's not just about being accepting of other people. We want to be accepting of ourselves. And one of the things we need to be accepting of is our, what I call unique charms. A unique charm is a quality about yourself, like talking a lot, right? That is part of core of who you are. And we don't want to change it, but sometimes it works for you and sometimes it works against you. I have that same unique charm. I can fill up the space. I don't like silence. I can talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And so I'm never going to be the quiet person. And at the same time, I can talk second. I can pause more. I can ask if they want me to elaborate. I can practice recognizing the social cues somebody might be giving me if I might be talking too much and cut myself off. I'm not going to be quiet, but I'm going to flex. And when I talk about flexing, I'm talking about the temporary, momentary adjustment of your style, of your unique charm to enable a deeper connection with somebody else and to improve your interaction with somebody else. Okay. So we're not changing who we are. We're fabulous, good, bad, or indifferent. As John Legend says, I love your curves and all your edges, all your perfect imperfections. I love that line because imperfection is perfection. We're not trying to be perfect. We are trying to be authentic, right? And authenticity means I have some qualities that are just, that's Michelle. My husband's, his unique charm is humor. He made me laugh from the second I met him. He makes me laugh 18 years later. I love this about him, but sometimes he goes for a joke when he really shouldn't. Right? I don't want him not to embrace his humor, but there are times it's not going to work for him. So don't worry about a gap. Like, it's not a blind spot. A blind spot is when you don't have the awareness. And so what I would say is, you asked me about what are the 2 blind spots that most leaders have. It's a really difficult question to answer. And it's because everybody's different. I work with a lot of clients, and sometimes the blind spot right now, I'm working with somebody who is over contributing. They are giving too much help. And what that does is make somebody feel like it's never good enough as a leader, right? They think they're being supportive, and what they're really doing is being a micromanager. All right. I have somebody else who thinks that they're accommodating somebody by not speaking up, but that person is interpreting it as, I'm giving you exactly what you want because you haven't told me otherwise. And neither of them are happy.
So how do you get aware of this? Because your strength can be your weakness.
Actually, that's a really fabulous point. And one of the things, so how do we do this? One is through a 360. And I'll explain that in a moment. But one of the things I do in a 360 is I interview, a dozen people or so that you work with. Boss, peers, employees, 360, all the way around the organization. And then we cull the data and we say, here's what has arisen as your strengths, and here's what has arisen as areas that you can grow. And what I almost always see is that we're over leveraging our strengths and they become weaknesses. So for example, I have somebody who is so fast. He is so quick. I mean, he just a mile a minute, his brain is just 10 steps past everybody else. But as a result, he does not bring people along with him in the thinking. He leaves them behind, and therefore he does not influence them and onboard them to his ideas. So over leveraging a strength works against us. And the best way to do that is go to your organization, go to your HR director. If you are a smaller organization and you're the boss, you might say, hey, I want to bring in a culture of increasing our self and other awareness by doing a 360. But I will caution you, don't do a 360 without supporting somebody afterward, because all of a sudden they're going to get this big report that says, here's everything wrong with you. And then they're going to feel beaten up. But that's where a coach comes in to say, okay, let's really look at this. And what are the changes we want to make? Executive coaching is really about behavioral change. And, right now I'm working with another client on trusting her employees. How do I trust so that I can empower them? And it's really hard to be empowering, which is what you said. Both of you said, he had my back. Let me make decisions. right? Like that mattered to you. You'd work for this guy. Well, imagine working for somebody who is so in your work, right, that you feel disempowered. They think they're being collaborative and you think they're being a micromanager. The only way to find that out was through this 360. And then we start to put what we call an individual development plan together to start making that behavioral change and having a coach to support that journey of how to do it and what it looks like and what actions to take. You need that. And you can do it internally. You can have buddy coaches. We do it in a group. I do work for the MTA of New York City, the largest transit, in the US, possibly, with some in the world. And we're doing group coaching there. And so group coaching is amazing because you create a network of peers where you feel like you're understood. So the small business owners that are out there listening right now, you might not have it within your organization, but create yourself a peer advisory council, a mastermind group of people and other leaders. I guarantee you there's people in the audience listening right now that are like, yes, I want to do that. You just have to find each other in your community, in your industry, in your job function, whatever it might be, that you can then, be sounding boards for each other. I get very excited about this stuff.
No, that is brilliant advice. And, this, knowing our audience and understanding this micromanagement, Michelle, I think that there's a lot of people listening in today that either, they may be micromanaging. When you run a small business, you want to be across it all. It's your money. There's all these things that, factor into it. If someone listening in is in this micromanagement mindset, now I think it's toxic. I've been through it. I know how I felt in it. If someone is in this mindset and they're managing in this way, is it difficult to get out of this mindset, this micromanagement where they have to be across everything their team's doing? They need to report on everything. I think number one, it's time consuming. It is toxic, but I know there's business owners out there that do it this way. Is there a way to get out of this and then become a likable leader, or are they doomed?
So micromanagers are not necessarily unlikable. As Gus said, there's an aspect that isn't working, but I will tell you, my leader is so well liked, but they like her as a person maybe more than they like working for her, right? So these are not mutually exclusive concepts. So how do we get out of this? First step is awareness and understanding what is the reason behind it. There's a book by Marshall Goldsmith called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And as we elevate in the organization, we need to understand that there's a transition from individual contributor to leader. And if you think about that leader, right, everybody was thinking about that leader in their life that was this great leader. And you said, what made them great? It wasn't their individual contribution. It wasn't their technical savvy, right? That's not what made them a great leader. So micromanaging is about doing the work. It's about not letting go of the individual contribution because you might be achievement oriented. And so it's understanding, why am I behaving in this way? Is it because that's what got me here? That's what got me successful. But that's not what you need to do as a leader to be successful. A leader needs to communicate, guide, provide vision, support, empower, coach, listen, have their back, provide opportunity. None of those things are technical skills. They need to trust that their people care. And Gus, you said this earlier, people want to get up and they want to have an impact. Now, they might not yet know how to do it, but that's how you have to think about empowering how they want to do it and not how you want to do it. Knowing that it might not be perfect. It might even fail, but that's how we learn. And so accepting that it's not going to be done your way. It's not going to be done as fast. It's not going to potentially be done as good, but it's never going to get done by somebody else unless you back off.
Yeah. So Michelle, obviously, I keep looking at your 11 laws of likability and connectors advantage. Can you just briefly go into these laws? Give us, tease us with some of the laws, so
Yes.
so
I'm
we
going
can
to list
understand
all the laws and all the mindsets and then you can pick whichever ones you want to dive into.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay. So in the laws of likability, the before the conversation laws are the law of authenticity, the law of self-image, the law of perception, and the law of energy. That's all before we start to have the conversation. The next section, the book is in 3 sections, is the conversation. And that is the law of curiosity, the law of listening, the law of similarity, and the law of mood memory. And the last 3 are after the conversation, which is the law of familiarity, the law of giving, and the law of patience. So I'll let you think about those while we flip over. Now, I summarize all of the laws in the Connector's Advantage because it really builds on the concepts. My brother-in-law, when I was writing the Connector's Advantage, said, "Oh, another networking book." I'm like, no, this one's about being a connector. He's like, "What's the difference?" And I looked at him and I was like, I should be able to explain that. And when I said to him, I said, I've never liked the word networking. It has the word work in it, and it feels like something you're doing. And that's what it is. Networking is something you do. A connector is who you are in everything you do. And that's the shift I make between the books. And so the mindsets of a connector are ways of prioritizing relationships and infusing in these mindsets into all of your interactions. Those 7 mindsets are: connectors are open and accepting. We've been talking a lot about that one. They have a clear vision. They come from a place of abundance. They trust. They are social and curious. They are conscientious, and they have a generous spirit. And you can see how we've evolved some of these from the law to the mindset. All right, which ones do you want to pick?
Wow, this is
Gus,
heavy
I think we pick one from each stage because they're all so interesting.
Yeah,
We pick one from stage one.
I want to be very selfish here, Natalie, because I write down under the 11 laws, the 3 that sounds easy, but it's actually very hard for my personality, as I'm a very extrovert.
I know which one you're about to say.
Like you, Michelle, I don't need coffee to be like this. Like I don't drink coffee. Be like this.
I drink coffee for us.
Natalie drink coffee before meeting with me. In the 11 laws, the first one you say authenticity, and then when you go to the second part, you also talk about curious, being curious, and then at the last one, you said you have to be patient. These 3 for me is connecting so much. I think everyone believe that they want to be authentic until someone give them feedback, and then they start, and then being curious but being patient. It's not easy. I mean, someone that curious normally is highly driven. Normally, I could be wrong. Normally, they move, they ask, they want to know. And then they have to be patient. Even when you are being curious as a leader, the other person might not give you the answer right away. Hey, why do you look like you're not happy today? Now, being curious, I can come back in 5 minutes. Are you happy? Why are you not happy? We will end up not be able to connect because our curiosity make us not being patient in our process. So that's the 3 of the topic that I want to hear more, but I don't know about Natalie.
Natalie, what do you think?
Go for it. I just wanted to know mood memory in number 2. What are we referring to there?
So mood memory is the idea that people will remember far more how you make them feel than anything that you say.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so if we think about the anatomy of a conversation, and that leads to the law of curiosity, I always say, when you don't know where to start by being curious. Ask a question. And then we weave in authenticity here. Ask a question you actually want to know the answer to, and one that you'd be willing to talk about yourself. So authenticity is the foundation, the through line of everything. You cannot apply any of the rest of the laws of likability without the foundation of authenticity, because how do I like somebody who's not being real? And you need to like you first, right? And that's the law of self-image. But I'm going to jump over authenticity for a minute and kind of go into that anatomy of a conversation. When we talk about being curious, right? what I do in likability is I talk about all the different types of questions and how to form a good question, and how to probe versus making sure you're not interrogating. When we move into the connections advantage and that mindset behind being social and curious, we talk a little bit less about the tactical aspects of it. And I actually have sections in both of the books around introversion, right? Because Gus, you said you're an extrovert, and a lot of people out there are listening and going, that's just for the extroverts. And I want to be really, really clear. Some of the best connectors I know are introverts. And when I talk about being social and curious, I don't mean a social butterfly. I don't mean a life of a party. I don't mean having to carry the conversation. I mean putting yourself in a situation to connect and be curious about one other individual. That's what being a connector is about. It is not about the flitting around the room. And so, yes, we can get some of the tactical stuff out of the likability in terms of what questions to ask and different types of questions and how we build rapport, and all of that is great. But when we think about true connection, we don't connect on what we do for a living. Like, I hate that word. We connect on our common causes and our common values and our common experiences and our common people and our common places and our common dreams and our common charities, and right. So we want to explore and learn about somebody. Curiosity is about, and you did this when we got on the phone. Hey, I'm about to spend an hour with you, but I want to just spend a few minutes just getting to know you, right? That's what Gus said to me as we got on. Like, tell me something about you. And I didn't go talk about work. What did I talk about? The things I'm passionate about. I talked about travel and animals and my kids, and right. And so curiosity is looking, it's almost being a detective of looking for, what do we have in common? Where can we find that connection point? Now, I'm really glad you raised patience because this is probably one of the hardest. It's why it's the last law of the book. It's one of the hardest because we want things to happen and we want them to happen now. We want them to happen yesterday. So patience is about understanding that if you give it time, things will happen. It's about letting things breathe and nurturing and letting them grow in time, especially relationships. And a lot of times, somebody will put a reach out and I'll say, well, did you follow up? My son right now is reaching out to professors in physics and nuclear particle plasma, all these big words that I don't understand. He's a 16-year-old junior in high school, and he's reaching out to college professors to try to learn about their research. And I asked, did you follow up? And he said, well, I did follow up once, and I figure if they didn't respond, that they didn't have time. I said, okay, well, maybe they didn't have time then. Maybe they have time now. It's summer. You might have caught them during finals. And so it's about being patient. It might not have been the right time then, but it doesn't mean we give up. So we can do another reach out. It's about not just patience with the relationship growing, but patience with your ability to give to that relationship. Because when people say, what are the most important laws? I usually struggle between authenticity and giving, because authenticity is so foundational, but giving is the heart, right? One of the last mindset of the connector is to be having a generous spirit. Yeah. Give because you can, because you want to, without expectation of having anything in return. And so we don't always know how we can give. And we need to be patient with our ability to give. And my feeling is it's nonlinear, right? I don't have to give to you because you gave to me. You gave to me. I don't have anything to give to you, but I'm going to give it to you. And so it's the philosophy, the mentality of a generous spirit that gives us permission to then ask for what we want. Right? Because I know I'm a giving person. I know I have a generous spirit. I know I'm adopting this mindset. And although it might not be quid pro quo, I don't want it to be quid pro quo. That's a hard word to say. I don't want it to be reciprocity. The likability book, that chapter was originally called The Law of Reciprocity. And I was like, I don't like that. It's not about reciprocity. It's not about give to get. It's about give to give. And to understand that when I have something I need, I can go out to that network and ask, and they will show up for me because I give when I can.
Michelle, in all of this, where is ego? Where is ego in all of this? Because the ego is something that always there, depending on where you're at in your stages of leadership, stages of connecting, stages of any part. Ego is always there. Where ego play? How do we manage our ego? I want to give. I want to help. I want to grow my team. I want to do all that until they grow so much that our position can be impacted, and then we start. Oh, maybe because our insecurity plays as a human being. So how do we become someone that likable, connecting, giving with no return?
Really great question. It's a really interesting framing of the question. You said ego, and my thought was like, I haven't really thought about it from the context of ego, but what you really are talking about is scarcity. And one of the mindsets of a connector is to come from a place of abundance. So
yes,
what you mentioned I didn't even realize that you were really tapping into this shift in mindset.
Yeah.
When you, and ego and scarcity, ego can be a lot of things, right? And I believe in having a healthy ego, right? There is nothing wrong with believing in yourself. That's part of the law of self-image. You need to believe in yourself. You need to have conviction. Like, all of that is great. So ego sometimes has a negative connotation. And I think we need a good sense of self. And to me, that's what ego is, a good sense of self, as long as it doesn't get in your way. And so when it gets in your way is when we worry, when we feel like we're being threatened, when we get defensive, when we get territorial. And that is coming from a place of scarcity. There's not enough to go around, right? I need to defend my position. I need to hold my people, right? If you had a boss who said, I want the most for you, and even if that means leaving my department or leaving my company, I support you, right? That person's going to be hard pressed to leave because they have such an amazing boss, but they might, and then they might come back even better to give even better, because it's not a short-term perspective, it's a long-term perspective. You are never going to be able to elevate in your career unless you have somebody who is able to step into your shoes. So if you have a fear of helping somebody grow, you won't be able to grow either. So if you really need to, take it from a what's in it for me perspective, but think about how you embrace the concept of abundance. And there's a couple techniques that I talk about in the book. One of which is to not compare yourself against anybody else. That you need to kind of understand your unique characteristics, your unique selling proposition, so to speak. And I don't view anybody as a competition, as a competitor. To me, abundance means that anybody out there who does the same work as I do is a great referral partner. It is a great collaborator. They are a great strategic alliance. I don't need to think about people as competitors. There's enough people who need what I do to go around. And I love knowing other people who do it as well, because one, I'm going to learn from them. And two, when I can't do something, I know I can call on somebody who is great and take care of my client.
Michelle, we all want to be likable leaders, but there's times as business owners, we have to deal with difficult situations. In those difficult situations, whether it's conflict or, your business isn't doing well, you have to cut your staff. We still want to come out as a likable leader, but they're really difficult situations to be in. For those leaders that are listening and perhaps are in that situation at the moment, what can they do? So let's say someone, a small business has to cut their team from 10 down to 5 for financial reasons. They're doing it tough. How can they do this and still at the end, first of all, it's difficult, but still at the end, be a likable leader? Because the person receiving that news, it's tough. They're not going to like their leader. Is there a way they can do this in a positive way?
Yes, and right. So and I want to be careful with like the overemphasizing the likability piece, right? I really want to bring it back to connected, being a connected leader. Likability is embedded in that connection, but being connected in a situation where you're giving somebody harsh feedback or where you're laying somebody off, in that moment, they're not going to like you. So don't hyper focus on being liked. That's not what you need in the moment. What you need in the moment is to be connected, to be an empathetic leader, to understand how do you support them in this transition. So I've coached a lot of people on how to exit somebody, including my husband, who early on in his career had to exit somebody. And we what we did was we coached them out. Now that's a little different, right? There's a little more time and a little bit more runway to do that. But sometimes it's, here's the situation. And one of the things I will say is the why behind the what is critical. So what is happening is you're being laid off. Why it's happening is because of this. Why you were selected is because of that, right? It might not have anything to do with you. It might have to do with the roles. It might have to do with seniority, right? It might have to do with their ability to do this role. And that's okay too. And it could be like, hey, I don't think this was ever the right fit for you. And so when we had to do this, your name rose. Here's what I think would be a great fit for you. I think you're fabulous. We want to be a referral. Here's how I can support you. Let's connect, after this all processes, and let's talk about places and people that I might be able to connect you to and how I can help support you in getting and finding your next role. You can be connected to the human. And don't worry about them liking you in that moment. Support what they need. It's not about you.
Yeah. And in what you've said, there's a lot of care there, isn't it? It's showing that empathy, the care that you understand, because they've got families, that is the key there. So I took it from the perspective of a likable leader, but I can now understand that it's about the connection, exactly how you explain that.
And I really like when you said it's all about connecting, because everything we do will always be seen as fake unless you connect authentically. That's my view anyway. You can give, you can be the great giver. I see on TV, I see often that people give whatever, give thought, give money, give whatever. But if you give to get a return and you're not giving authentically, then you can't connect. And if you want to connect, then you have to be very authentic, and you need to be connect. And then on all that process, the outcome, I agree with you, you become likable. But if you want to be likable and then start connecting, then you become not authentic. Because I'm connecting with Michelle to be likable, to be liked by Michelle, then you will feel it. I'm only connecting. Is that what you're trying to say, Michelle? Don't focus on being liked. Focus on how to connect, and the outcome, you will get the like automatically because you're connecting.
Likability, the way in which sometimes we think about it and phrase it, it is one-sided. Like, hey, like me, I'm a pup, right?
Yeah.
But connection is an interaction. And so, yes, I want to enable you to see what's likable about me. I also want to see what's likable about you. I want to find where our points of connection and likability are founded versus just trying to get somebody to do something, because that's not real. And to your point, it is inauthentic because we're trying, I don't want to say trying too hard, but something I had to learn early on when I left finance and I was in front of a room of people and trying to teach a class, I would end up hyper-focusing on the one or two people that I didn't have, right? They weren't participating. They didn't look happy. And instead of focusing on the 90% of the room that was with me, that was engaged, that was thinking this is great, I would hyper-focus on the one person I didn't have. You can't win them all. And I can make an effort in breaks and I can check in. And at some point we need to let it go. As a leader, right? What does that look like? Are you happy here? Right? What do you see as your next step? What's going to make you feel engaged? How can we work better together? Do you want to work better together? Like, let's have a coaching conversation. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. And maybe you'll realize that there are some assumptions bringing us back to the beginning of our conversation. maybe you'll realize that there's some assumptions in there that we're reading in that aren't there. And the only way we know is through communication.
Michelle, I think our audience have a lot of reading to do, your books, because this has just been an amazing chat. I'm looking at the time. We are almost out of time. Michelle, where can our audience go to purchase your books?
Well, I love hearing from audience. So please, when you reach out to me, say you heard me on Leader Talk. The best place to start to find me is simply on my website, Michelle with 2 L's, Tillis, Tillis, Lederman, Lederman.com. And from there, you can, there's links. I have a book special, I believe, in giving the gift of connection. So I have a buy one, gift one special on my website. It is US shipping only, so you might want to just go to your local Amazon to get the book. But if my US audience, I can give you that book special. If you want to do something broader, email me. You can connect me right through my website. You can find my LinkedIn. I have a newsletter. I've got free gifts. All of that's going to be in the show notes. I'm on Insta. I'm on YouTube. I'm everywhere.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure, Michelle. This whole hour has just gone so quick. I think, Gus, we could have gone into detail, an hour per topic here that we've got on the 11 laws. It's just been amazing. But I'm going to hand it over to you, Gus, to wrap up.
Thank you, Michelle, for your insight. You know, this topic for Natalie and I is a very important topics because I think people will agree that what make us successful, what can bring us connecting, what can bring us to the next level is our ability to learn what you call what we call soft skill, which is not even soft. We need to actually focus on it. So great topic. So we started by trying to understand how to be likable and connected leader. You said you cannot make anybody like you. It's like a punch at 7 o'clock in the morning. For me, you cannot make anybody like you. However, at the same time, in absence of connections, also you said others will not be able to see your strength. People only follow leaders, they connect. So a lot of things that we started the conversation is about how we can connect, because otherwise people can't follow us. While you cannot make everyone happy, leader's role is to work effectively with all. And you start this with effective connections. Appreciating differences in views allows connection to grow and improve our likability. You don't need to change yourself. Being authentic is a quality that you need to connect. Your strength can be your weakness, especially when you're often leveraging your strength. It is good to be a fast runner in a team until you left everyone behind. And then you are running by yourself, not as a team leader. True connection is when we can find common values, common dreams, joy, activity, passion, etc. Our ability to be curious to find our commonality will help us connect and being liked as well at the same time. Start giving because abundance is around us. By giving, you connect. In the process of connecting, remember, in the process of being likable, remember that that's not your goal. Your goal is to connect. Because when you successfully, authentically connect, the prize you get is you become a likable leader. Thank you for your insight. We learn a lot from you. And for all our audience that want to get more, you can visit our Brainiac website or Michelle Tillis Lederman website as well. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Michelle. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you for the last hour. I have learned so much. I still have so many questions, by the way. But thank you, everyone, for tuning in. For more information on Leader Talk and for some great resources to help your business grow, check out brainiac.com.au. Bye, everyone.